Well, here's an interesting new poll. It's from Siena College, and it shows that Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez has wasted no time in becoming deeply unpopular among voters in her home state of New York. A total of 33% of those polled said they liked Ocasio-Cortez. A whopping 44% did not. How did someone who's been in Congress only a few months turn off so many people and so quickly? Well, the Congresswoman has a ready answer for that, as she does for most things. As she explained on Twitter, Republicans, working in concert with that dastardly Fox News, quote, otherize and demonize anyone who isn't, quote, a white male. In other words, it's bigotry, pure and simple. Those may look like bad poll numbers. What they really are is racism. Now, it's possible you will scoff at this explanation. It is whiny and predictable and totally self-serving. It's also unsupported by evidence. So skepticism is a fair response. But let's go a little deeper for a second. What we have here is not simply a cynical excuse for personal failings, one we've heard 1,000 times from politicians, racism. What Ocasio-Cortez has given us instead is a litmus test for our souls. It's simple. When you agree with Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, you are a good person. When you disagree with her, you are not. You're a racist, a bigot, a hater, a loathsome human being. Got that? Okay. Prepare for the exam. We're not proctoring this test. We're on TV right now and you're at home or in a bar. We're going to have to use the honor system here. We're going to play you a series of clips. Now, be honest about how you feel about them. Everything hangs in the balance. First, we're going to consider AOC's views on children. She doesn't have any, and there's a reason for that. She cares too much. Her heart is too big. Watch her explain.
Our planet is going to face disaster if we don't turn this ship around. And so it's basically like there's scientific consensus that the lives of children are going to be very difficult. And it does lead, I think, young people to have a legitimate question. You know, is it okay to still have children?
Is it okay to still have children? That is AOC's question to you. Now, if you answered, are you kidding? Of course it's okay to have children. And by the way, back off, you authoritarian creep. How many kids I have is none of your business. If you answered that way, you failed the test. You're probably a white supremacist. If, on the other hand, you paused for a moment, thought deeply about climate change, and realized that actually some unmarried 29-year-old member of Congress probably should be in charge of your childbearing decisions, then congratulations. You passed. You are virtuous, not a racist at all. Okay, on to number 2. This one's about food.
My Twitter mentions I'm getting a lot of references about cow farts. And I think that's a reference to your Green New Deal.
Yeah.
Can you explain that for us?
We got to address factory farming. Maybe we shouldn't be eating a hamburger for breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
So the question is, how many hamburgers should you be allowed to eat in the course of a day? Now, there are 2 possible answers here. The first is, huh? What kind of question is that? Isn't this America? And hey, stop eating off my plate. That, unfortunately, is the racist answer. It's the one that Bull Connor would have given if he were still alive enough to eat Big Macs. The correct answer is, I will eat exactly as many hamburgers as Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez allows me to eat, and I will be grateful for them. If that was your response, congratulations to you. You are a good person. Now to number 3. This one's about immigration.
Those women and children trying to come here with nothing but the shirts on their back to create an opportunity and to provide for this nation are acting more in an American tradition than this president is right now.
So the question is, who is more American? Actual Americans or foreigners who spit on our customs and mock our laws by sneaking into our country illegally and calling us racist if we try to make them leave? This is a tough one. Keep thinking. Okay, time's up. The answer is illegal aliens are the real Americans. Duh. If you doubted that for a second, please hate yourself. You deserve it. And now for the final question on our test. This one is the Daily Double. See how you do.
Criticisms of you is that your math is fuzzy. The Washington Post recently awarded you 4 Pinocchios.
I think that there's a lot of people more concerned about being precisely, factually, and semantically correct than about being morally right.
Factually correct. Now, this question gets right to the heart of it all. Are you one of those troglodytes who still cares about facts, about numbers and evidence and physical reality? It's 2019, man. Physics is just a preference. if you persist in being factually correct and continue to read books, speak in complete sentences, please know that you are committing racism. You, sir, are a bigot. And Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez condemns you. She, by contrast, is morally right and utterly certain of it. On this test, that is all that matters.
New Siena poll shows New Yorkers consider AOC a villain for Amazon ditching New York City for its new headquarters too. Congressman Tom Reed, Republican, New York, is with us now. First off, Congressman, do you think there's any chance of getting Amazon back to New York?
You know, I hope there was, but it doesn't look like they will be coming back, in my humble opinion. And, you know, that's a shame and, you know, something that should have been avoided.
And New Yorkers blame AOC for this?
That's what the polls indicate. That's where I think we're seeing, but it's not. It's bigger than AOC. I mean, this is an extremism on the left side of the aisle that's taken over the party. Where, you know, as one of my colleagues said, they used to protest jobs as the Democratic, or protest wars as the Democratic Party. Now they're protesting jobs. I mean, that to me is an extremism that needs to be held into check.
Well, there's this other poll that says 2 out of 3 New Yorkers say Amazon's pulling out was bad for the state. And yet, New Yorkers overall blame a New York congresswoman for them leaving the state. Isn't that a bit of a contradiction? Well, you want your cake and you want to eat it too?
Well, I think what it's also tapping into, though, is the reality of New York. The New York taxpayers need to wake up in Albany, Stuart, and start changing the tax and spend regulatory overreach that is occurring because of that extreme left agenda overtaking our state capital. And that's where the root cause of the problem is. And when you have to put a $3 billion deal together to attract one company to the state, you should look at the underlying foundation of why that is necessary to attract a business of Amazon's magnitude to New York.
Now, Governor Cuomo has, I believe, lowered property taxes in the state, or certainly put a cap on them, and a cap on their rise. Do you think it likely that he would reduce or cut any other taxes at all?
I hope he does. And I gave the governor praise for saying during these budget negotiations in New York that he would not sign a budget that doesn't have a permanent cap on our property tax burden. Our taxpayers are just taxed too much. They're leaving our states in droves. So hopefully he learns the lesson of the property tax cap and applies it to income taxes and other fees in New York State that are driving people out.
Tom, do you think he will? Do you really think he will?
You know, I'm hopeful, but I'll be a realist and say no.
Thank you.
I think there's just such a commitment to tax and spend out of our state capital that changing it under this leadership in Albany is not going to be the reality of the day. That's a shame, but let's keep putting pressure on them to do it.
It's like living in Europe. Going nowhere.
Amen.
Tom Reed.
It's getting bigger and bigger. Bigger government leads to more taxes, more regulations, and I will tell you, if you look at the country as a whole and what the president has done, igniting this economy, we should learn a lesson from that. Lower taxes, reasonable regulations leads to huge job growth opportunities.
Good luck with that hope and change. Thanks very much, Tom Reed. We appreciate you being here, as always.
Well, not issuing sad, self-effacing apologies for their own skin color. Top Democrats are warning that if we don't give them full control of the U.S. economy right now, the world will literally be destroyed.
The world is going to end in 12 years if we don't address climate change. And your biggest issue is how are we going to pay for it? And like, this is the war. This is our World War II.
This is our final chance. The scientists are absolutely unanimous on this, that we have no more than 12 years to take incredibly bold action on this crisis.
That's just pathetic. But this show cares about science, and so we want to assess the claim critically and scientifically. Do we really have 12 years left? That's what they're saying. Is it true? Daniel Turner is Executive Director at Power the Future and joins us tonight. Mr. Turner, thanks very much for coming on. So just throw that right to you. Do we have 12 years left? Is there science that shows that?
Actually, the Associated Press today debunked that, which was pretty fascinating for someone who studies energy and environmental issues, to see the Associated Press walk that back and say, we have never said there are 12 years left to fix climate change. But Beto has said it, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez has said it, and the scientists who wrote this UN report have said, that is a made-up statistic that you all have extrapolated. It's interesting that they finally issued the report now.
Hold on, slow down. That's the party of science.
Yes.
We know that. They had a march for science after Trump got elected. You remember that?
Yes.
Because they believe in science and we don't. And we believe obviously, in snake handling.
Kids marched out of class on Friday for science.
For science, but this doesn't sound like science.
No, the 12 years number is what the scientists said based upon the Paris Climate Accords. This is where we would like to get by 2030. This happened in 2018. So by 2030, we want to get here. Somehow that number became, if we don't do it in 12 years, the end of the world is imminent. And Beto has said that. Like I said, numerous Democrats have run on that issue. When Beto announced the other day, that clip that you just showed, he said that there was unanimous consensus among scientists that we had 12 years left to fix this. And so it is nonsense that they've repeated this over and over again, and it never gets, as you said in your first segment, it never gets corrected and no one apologizes.
So these are basically people you're saying who believe that Bill Nye is actually a science guy and not just a buffoon created by television.
Exactly.
Okay.
And what I'd love to ask these folks, I remember a report in 1989, I was a freshman in high school when it came out, that said we had 10 years left. By the year 2000, we had to fix climate change. What did they get wrong then? The same UN panel, by the way, issued both reports. What did they get wrong then that they are so certain that they have now that we have to fix climate change?
It sounds like a lot of what they say is just an effort to immediately take the moral high ground and, holding the moral high ground, do whatever they want to the country.
Yeah, when you do things under the guise of protecting Mother Earth or for the planet or for the children, which is what a lot of them say. Remember those kids who stormed Dianne Feinstein's office a little while ago. When you do things for the planet, you are given a really wide berth. And so it is taking over the healthcare industry. It's taking over basically all employment. It's putting out of work millions of people who work in the energy industry. Funny that Beto wasn't talking about these things when he was running against Ted Cruz a couple months ago.
It's just fun. I mean, I think of myself as a pretty ardent conservationist, as someone who loves the outdoors and spends a lot of time there. If they care so much about the environment, why are their cities filthy? The cities that they run, San Francisco, Los Angeles, New York, they're cesspools.
And why don't, in their personal lives, they dictate what they want government to mandate? Bernie Sanders prefers to fly on private jets. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez prefers to take the shuttle on American Airlines to Amtrak. Now, Penn Station, I don't blame her. I would much rather take the shuttle, the airline as well.
But doesn't that tell you don't want to go to Penn Station because it's disgusting? Mm-hmm. You don't want to walk down the street in the Mission District in San Francisco because there's human waste and hypodermic needles. How should I take someone seriously as an environmentalist if they don't pick up the trash in front of their own building?
They're unable to run their cities now, but somehow if they are given more power to run all of government, to employ basically the entire nation, including those unwilling to work, as they mentioned, somehow they'll be able to fix things. They can't run Amtrak well now. What makes us think that they will build a national automotive grid or train railroads?
I feel like a lot of conservatives, Republicans certainly, are on the defensive as soon as these people start talking and they say, climate is a problem. Instead of just saying you have no idea what you're talking about, there's no reference in science to what you're saying. You're a demagogue and a liar. Why does nobody say that?
I wish they would just point out what actually fossil fuels does for our country, what it does for our economy, the quality of life that we have. The kids who were marching just on Saturday were all with smartphones. There was a girl who had a plastic Fiji water bottle. Does she not know that? And saying, stop fossil fuels. Does she not know where fossil fuels come from and what they do?
what plastic is made of? Thank you very much for that perspective. I appreciate it.